My dear listeners of radioudaan, this is RJ Babuji, Janak, Rajan, starting this newest episode of the Great Indian Monolog with a very interesting question to you. Just imagine that, one fine morning, all the adults in the world, they disappear. Only the kids, the kids of age between 10 and 13, they actually survive and everybody else vanish. How many days these children would survive on their own, in the absence of the adults in our modern world? Just think about it and hold your answers till you listen through this latest episode, and then I will answer the question, plus I'll also add some more information around the reason for the questioning. Okay, let's go into the episode now. In Colombia, a country in the South American continent, a flight carrying 3 adults and 4 children takes off from San Jose de Guariare to Araraquara. These are in the Amazon forest region. The flight starts on the 1st of May 2023, which is about a month and 10 days back. The passengers were native tribes from the Amazon forest region, and minutes later, once the flight takes off, and shortly afterwards, the pilot issues the Mayday alert. A Mayday alert is an emergency call made by the pilot to the control tower in the nearest airport, and the information he gave was engine failure, which means the flight is about to crash. It crashed. 2 weeks later, May 15th, a search team, which comprises of 150 soldiers and 200 volunteers, they find the crashed plane deep into the forest, on the floor of the forest. The remains of the crashed plane was found. Bodies of 3 adults found in the plane, but there was no trace of the children except some footprints from the crash site. Even those footprints, they actually disappeared after a short distance from the crash site. So Colombian government, they actually starts an operation called Hope, because they saw the footprint of the children and they assumed that the children would have gone into the forest, they would be alive and they could be rescued. That is why they named the rescue operation Hope. And to tell you what, the size of the forest they have to search is roughly equal to the size of the greater city of Chennai. Chennai is a very big city, a megapolis, and the forest area, the volunteers and the soldiers have to search was almost equal to the land size of Chennai city, right? So they actually use some helicopters to make some low sorties, low flying helicopters, which would broadcast a message from the grandmother of the children in the native language of the children. They were tribal people, so they requested the grandmother of the children to record a message for them, and they started playing it in a loop in low flying helicopters with loudspeakers all over the forest. And they also started dropping food packages with the belief that if the kids are alive, if they're able to find the food, it would help them to survive one more day, right? The search was very difficult because the terrain was difficult. It was deep forest, virgin forest with a lot of trees, and it was also occupied by different the so-called militants. There are so many different militant groups in Colombia, and they hide in the forest, and they occasionally fight against the government and against each other, and it's a very, very risky and dangerous terrain even to do normal work. So because of the difficulty of the terrain and the time they were losing, the government, they brought in 10 Belgian Shepherd dogs, basically sniffer dogs, which could sniff out the kids if the kids are still alive or even if dead, right? So they were brought into the search operation to locate the children. And the children were aged 13 years, 9 years, 4 years and a 11-month-old baby. What would be the chances of survival if a very small child is dropped into a forest and let it be there, let him or her survive there on their own skill? What would be the chances of survival? There's a virgin forest with a lot of venomous snakes and dangerous animals and insects and whatnot, right? 40 days later, that is precisely Friday last week, the search team found all the 4 kids, including that 11-month-old baby, alive and healthy, though signs of malnutrition was visible. No serious injuries, no health issues at all. The team which actually found these children, they were led by a sniffer dog which actually sniffed out the presence of the kids there, and that is how they located the children, and they cried in the microphone shouting, "Miracle, miracle, miracle." It was a big miracle indeed. The kids kept moving throughout this time, and that made the search all the more difficult. The search team had hope. The reason for their hope was very simple. We haven't seen the dead bodies of the children yet, so they must be alive. Okay, what helped the kids survive the dangerous jungle? Tribal knowledge, the education they learned just by living with their elders, helped them to survive the dangers of the forest. Forest also fed them. It had enough food, in fact a lot more food for more than 4 children. It helped them to eat and survive. And there was a possibility that nomadic tribes, the tribes who shift their location from time to time, also could have identified these children and helped them to survive. And the Colombian president, he said, when he gave a press conference after the news broke out that the children were found, he said, "The jungle saved them. They are children of the jungle and children of the country." Just remember his words. They are children of the jungle. We are all children of the jungle. Do you remember that? We all came from the jungles. You, me, my parents, your parents, their parents, and your parents' parents, everybody came from the jungles. And now let's cut back to the question I asked you at the beginning of this episode. If all the elders of the world disappear one fine morning, leaving only the kids of 10 to 13 years of age, in our modern world, how many of them would survive a day, or how long they would survive? Before answering that question, I would elaborate the scenario a bit. If the elders disappear, the safety, the safekeeping of the place, it goes. Right from military to police to, local guards or whatever you call it, they all disappear. And because all the elders disappear, there won't be any people, with the know-how and the ability to operate the machines. So which means no power, no electricity, no transportation, no nothing. Everything comes to a standstill. And these kids, these 10 to 13-year-old kids who are schooled in our modern world to learn, acquire knowledge, the knowledge, which would help them to land a job, which would help them to earn money and live a successful life happily ever after. This education would never have helped them to survive this kind of a scenario even beyond a day, because these kids, they simply don't have the survival skills taught by anybody, not the schools, neither the schools, nor the parents, nor by the system. This is the biggest problem of our modern education system, which is making factory line product, kind of students coming out of the school, everybody armed with the same kind of knowledge, everybody, taught through the same kind of education, know-how, lessons, whatever you call it, subjects you call it, and everybody going through a single window, like, an examination or whatever. And then, depending upon the grade, they actually get some plum higher study opportunities or plum jobs, and somebody may start some business and so on. But the motivation for everybody as schooled by the system is to make money and be successful, because success here is measured by how much money they make. And this question about the survival probability of 10 to 13-year-old kids, it was originally asked by an author called Daniel Quinn in his seminal trilogy, 3-book series, Ishmael, the story of B and My Ishmael. And he says our civilization, it actually conditions us in only one particular way, that you grow up, you go to a school, you learn something, and then you work, you earn, you save, you retire, you die. But this is not the way of the world before we became the modern world. These tribal children, just 13 years, 13 or 11. Let me just check. 13 years, 9 years, 4 years, and an 11-month-old baby. Just imagine an 11-month-old baby being taken care of and having survived an ordeal of staying for 40 days and nights in a thick forest. No man around, no elders around to guide them, no signboard, no supermarket, no bank, no water fountain, no water tap, no pool, nothing. They were able to navigate their way around the jungle, and they were able to survive only because they were schooled in a very different way, in a very different system which didn't have schools at all. They learnt life in an immersive experience by living with their elders in whatever activities the elders do. These children, right from the time they get up in the morning till the time they sleep, they go with the elders for whatever activity they do, maybe be it hunting or, getting some food or harvesting some food or doing some work, some physical work, mechanical work. They learnt by living with the elders in an immersive scenario where education was 24/7. Plus, the wisdom their elders imparted them, the ancestral wisdom, that the elders carry, they pass it down to their children, do's and don'ts as part of work. This helped them to survive and come out of this dangerous forest unharmed. The most beautiful thing about the disappearing footprints of the children, I said at the beginning of the episode that on the crash site the rescue team was able to find the footsteps leading away from the crash site, but the footsteps disappeared after a while. Why? The floor of the forest is infested with slugs. Slugs are insects which attach to our skin, our feet, our legs or whatever, and they suck the blood out of us. These kids, they are so smart, they learn the art of survival by living through this kind of a scenario, day in and day out. They use some old clothes to cover their feet up to the ankle, and they were able to navigate the slug-infested soil. And that is the reason why the rescue team was not able to identify the footprints, because they won't leave any footprints by walking with their legs covered with some clothes, right? And this happened in the same world where we have been bothered about so many things happening around us, a war and a train crash and a lot of politics. He is right, she is right, he is wrong, she is wrong, and my hero won the cup, my hero lost, and my superstar, he has given a blockbuster day for his new movie, and we are inundated with so many nonsensical stuff. This life affirming, this miraculous story, it might not have been picked up by any of the popular magazines and media in your region. I'm sure about that. Because, we have, so many other, trivial issues which are occupying our minds. And this is the reason, I think, why we are not able to find God and we are still searching for God desperately. Because if anybody who does a miracle, it's the way we identify them as God, right? A God is the one who can do, miracles. And the very act of helping this kid, these kids, survive in a harsh jungle, nature had pulled a big miracle in front of our eyes, and we hardly notice that. And just by this act, I extrapolate that nature must be the mother of all gods, because every god create miracle, and nature would have created gods as the biggest miracles, like the one we saw unfolding in the last 40 days. I tell you what, if you are deprived of whatever food you eat today, and the drink you take, and the comforts you have, be it physical comfort or the virtual comfort like social media or enjoying an air cooler, whatever it is, if they are all stopped, it will be very, very difficult for us even to survive a single day. And by the day 2 or day 3, we would need medical attention for dehydration, for this, that, and so many other problems, or even mental breakdown. Because that is the kind of world we are living in, and our world needs these kind of miracles regularly, urgently, and more than anything, it needs our attention too. So, my dear listeners of Radio Udaan, you just listened to yet another episode of the Great Indian Monolog. This is RJ Babuji, Janak, Rajan. I wish you all truckloads of love and a lot of miracles to happen in your life, day in and day out. Because, heck, what else is there in our life, right? Stay blessed, stay tuned till I talk to you again in the next episode. Bye-bye.